Welcome to Chris and Jen in the Morning.
Where it's always morning somewhere.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Jen, and we are so excited to be with you today.
We are back in our respective chairs.
We are back in our respective chairs, which I'm very grateful that I get to come home to such a comfortable place, but I really just wish I was still there with you.
I know. The time flew by.
So fast.
It's like we blinked and it was all over.
I know, like that's just seems like what always happens is you're just living life, enjoying things, and it just barrels forward.
That's right.
So, speaking of things that I'm grateful for, let's do our gratitude moment.
Alrighty.
And I don't know, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. So, I am very grateful for all of the large organizations who are currently standing up against all of the nuttiness that is happening with this administration, such as the ACLU, the NAACP. I don't truly think that people understand the magnitude of some of these things and the far-reaching effects that they have. To be able to litigate these types of things takes organizations who know what they're doing, who have the ability and the funds to make this stuff happen. And I am grateful, largely because my community is being impacted by a lot of these decisions. It gives me hope whenever there are people who don't even identify within the community, but are allies who are willing to step up and say, this is not right. You cannot do this, and start the fight. So I am very grateful for those organizations, but I'm also really happy for and proud of the smaller individuals, smaller organizations that some of these things are also impacting, who are saying, yes, use me, use my company, use my name, whatever it may be to help move this cause forward. Because we've talked about it before. It is not always easy to be in the spotlight. It's not always easy to be aligned with, an opposing perspective. And these individuals and organizations are, I am so grateful for them and so happy that we live in a country that these organizations can exist and do exist.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's a bit heavy to start us off. So, sorry.
How do I follow that? I mean, I don't know. But, one of the things that I was thinking about actually today as I was on my walk and I was reflecting, what are the things that I'm grateful for, which I particularly like to do when I'm grumbling inside my head about something that I don't enjoy. So it was really hot out this morning, and I looked at the temperature and I thought, it's only 82 degrees. 82 degrees isn't hot. I mean, I, of course, didn't look at the humidity, which always plays a factor as well. I went out for my walk in the full sun with no clouds. I was not anticipating it to be hot. I was anticipating it to feel nice because, it's a far cry from triple digits. It was really hot. I was very red in the face and very uncomfortable. I just was thinking I take air conditioning for granted. I'm actually really grateful to be in a position where I have air conditioning, where I can return to my home and be in a place where I am comfortable. Not everybody has that opportunity and that luxury, and to just be in a place where I sit in that and say, I'm really grateful that I have an easy time of getting cooler. Many people don't have that either here or in other parts of the world. To start us off with summer, I'm just super grateful for air conditioning and the ability to get cool.
Yeah, we were getting all sorts of heat advisory notices today here in the city, specifically from the electric company, asking people to conserve energy when and where they can, because they don't want to overburden the system and cause issues. Like I think it got up to like 96, 98, somewhere in there today. So it gets very warm in these buildings that do not have like any type of central air, and so it's tough on the power unit. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I am glad I made it back home before it hit that hot in New York, because it's 92 here in Dallas, but we're prepared for 92 as long as we stay inside. However, as you mentioned, New York is not built that way. But let's talk a little bit about I've just been to see you. We've been hanging out together for the last week and a half or something like that. And it was really hard to leave and come back home because spending time with you is always one of my favorite things to do. But we wanted to talk a little bit about why I was there and what we did and what we took away from that. One of the things that we did, drove up to New York. Our producer, my amazing husband, Ace, and I, mostly I rode. I did drive one little part on the way home, but I appreciate being a passenger princess, let me just say. So we drove up to see you, and we had a long weekend, and then went to a conference together. A conference that we went to was a Build conference put on by B&H Photo. It was at the Javits Center. It had kind of three main tracks, if you will. One of them was around photography, which is something I've always been interested in. I know you also have some interest in, and I've been leaning into a little bit more from an exploration standpoint in my free time. One of them was filmmaking, which is interesting, but I didn't really do much in the filmmaking space because there were over 100 speakers at this conference. 2 days, 100 speakers. There's a lot of online content I'm going to be watching. The third track was on content creation, which, being individuals with a podcast, is something that, we are constantly in the midst of. It was actually a really amazing conference. I am incredibly grateful to B&H Photo for putting this on, for giving back to the community of creatives. They drew some amazing speakers while we were there. So 2 days filled with just tons of great connections and thoughts and inspiration. And Chris, I would love to know from you, what was your favorite part of the whole trip?
I think all of our time together, it was just great to spend time with one another. A lot of what we do and a lot of the time that we spend collaborating is generally with online tools and things that you and I kind of work into our day-to-day lives. And so to actually be able to sit in the same room and have conversations and be able to kind of talk about oh, if we wanted to broach this topic, how would we do that?
Yeah.
And is that really what we're wanting to talk about, or is there really something else in there that a different nugget of wisdom that we can pull from it? And so I really enjoyed having those opportunities. I have to say that the Build Expo was just truly inspirational. As someone I've never really leaned into photography. I've never I have my phone. That's the extent of what I think I am as far as photography goes. But to hear people be able to tell stories with these devices and the movements that they are contributing towards with these photographs is inspiring. And then to hear people from the content creation standpoint talk about living an authentic life and sharing pieces that people can connect with you. To me, many of those things seem obvious, but it's not until you're sitting in a room with people who are interested and kind of on that same journey with you that you truly begin to understand how that shows up and how it manifests. And so I would say having that opportunity was inspiring. The first day, I know as we were leaving this space that had all of these people, we were ooh, let's stop and record something. And I was just so overwhelmed by the entire day, the amount of people. How could we sum everything up in such a short amount of time? It was just so much, but it was inspiring. It was just a great opportunity to see things, hear things. And then the exhibit floor where they had all of the vendors, pretty sure they had everything that you could need for photography, video.
Not everything. There were a few things I was hoping was there that were missing, but
Okay.
it was a lot. It was just really overwhelming. Yeah. I would say I agree with you. My favorite parts of the trip were getting to spend time with people who I just absolutely adore. I mean, anytime I get to spend time with you and Frank and Ollie, I feel like my soul just gets kind of that moment of rest and that refueling. And, what I appreciate is we've known each other for 11 years. We have embarked on doing this podcast together. You've been, an emotionally safe place for me for many, many years. And yet, on this trip, I feel like I got to know you even more deeply. I have known you, and I am incredibly grateful for that. And I really enjoyed that. I think being in a place where we can agree and I can put as an expressive, I can put thoughts out there and have you disagree, and like push me and push the way that I'm thinking and leave space for me to say things that can evolve or help me evolve in the way that I think
Yeah.
over time. I really appreciate having that relationship. I have said for years, if I surrounded myself with people who, are just an echo chamber of who I am or what I say or think, then I'll never grow. And I mean that. I have always meant that. But, it's not always safe to say things that, other people may misunderstand kind of
Yeah.
the meaning of. And I think that's a part of what I appreciate so much about our friendship is that, um, like, being able to be safe enough to give each other the benefit of the doubt so that we can push each other in the ways that we're thinking. I even recall, I think at least twice, I came back the next day and said, okay, I get it. I get what you're saying. I was wrong. What I said was wrong. I appreciate the perspective to help me grow the way that I think. So, and then I also think just getting to experience new things together was really fun for me as well. I love to put on my adventure hat and become Adventure Jen, and I love to do that not just by myself but with other people and get to
Yeah.
experience stuff together. So that was a lot of really fun memories made, and just stuff you can't get digitally. So
Right. It's almost like you felt like the I don't want to say blank spaces, but the spaces where we're not together and we make that concerted effort to connect with one another. Like when you are with someone, you don't, it's not an effort. Like it's just you're there. And so it's a natural connection and a natural flow. And look, I think we've done a great job figuring out how to do it, living
virtually,
all
yeah.
these miles away from one another, but it just brought something different and like a different like spark. And we've seen each other since we've started the podcast, but I think this is like the first time that we've been so close to one another, that we've connected. And I think it just showed up differently this time.
Yeah, I agree. um I think, one of the other favorite things of the trip for me was just um, the the amazing individuals that we got to actually be like in the room with.
Yeah.
There were some really big names in photography, like Cristina Mittermeier and Paul Nicklin are amazing individuals and photographers who've really been pushing the bounds of what nature photography can really do in the world. And that was really incredible and inspiring. We got to listen to Lynsey Addario, who is also a photographer. I think the New York Times maybe is who she's been working with most recently. But I mean, major publications, movements across the world, war photography. She was a prisoner of war at one point, and just getting to hear them storytell was truly inspiring. And then, we got to be in the room with, some of the folks at, some of the social media companies who, are a part of that sort of creator world, and hearing what they're about and how we can come together as a community and support each other. And that was
Yeah.
great. And then hearing from other creators like Gregory Litley and Cassandra Bankston and Jacob Wallach. And, there were others as well. I think that panel was probably one of my favorite creator panels. And just getting to, like, for them to be willing to invest their time to sit up on a stage and share what they have learned and what they are feeling, and even like what they are personally thinking about in the creator space right now and what they're wrestling with. I know Jacob was sharing a little bit about that. Like for me, that was just like really I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? It just was like really reassuring that you don't have to have it all figured out and have the whole plan and the map and
Yeah.
know, exactly all the right answers. That you just can, we all get a little lost sometimes and we just keep going. And that's what this is all about. And so for me, I think that was another one of my favorite parts was just being able to be in the audience of, you know, such a great group of individuals who are so passionate and at the top of their craft. Just huge thanks to B&H Photo for pulling that together and giving us that space.
Yeah, it was, like I said, it was inspirational. Cristina Mittermeier told us, like, she went through her story and then at the end said that there was a special with National Geographic with featuring photographers. And so, like, that night we came home and we watched the episode with her and her husband, and it was really cool, like, to see her talk about, like, her career and how it inspired her and moved her into this space that she didn't even know that she wanted to be in. Now how it's, like, inspired this whole different, like, lead on life for her was absolutely incredible. Highly recommend checking out Photography. We watched it through Disney Plus with National Geographic, but I highly recommend.
Yeah.
It's just getting to see the world through other people's eyes and to hear their experiences was inspirational, truly, truly inspirational.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of inspirational, what moved you the most?
I think Lynsey Addario's keynote was probably the one that moved me the most. Um, like, I will say, like, I know, like, I've looked at photography. I know that it's an art form. I know it's all of those things. But I think sitting there and listening to her story, because what, she spoke for like 25, 30 minutes. And in that time period, kind of walked us through, like, all of the major pieces of her career. I wanted to know more. I wanted to know those stories. I wanted to see those photos. Just her ability to tell that story, hook you, pull you in, and make you feel that emotion, to me, was very lasting. Like, it has impacted me for sure.
Yeah. I she had an afternoon presentation in the main session and it's actually on YouTube. If you are interested in watching it, we will share a link to the main session in our description for this podcast. It's noted in there what time during that video her session is. I highly recommend that you watch it. Lynsey, my thoughts in listening to her, I had several. One was, wow, this woman can compartmentalize like no one I've ever met before. Because you have to have that skill set
Yeah.
and be really good at it to do what it is that she does. And her commitment to experiencing the hard things to make a difference in life was just so incredibly moving to me. The second thing that I thought was, I just want to cry and listening to story after story after story. But we were filming later that day. And so I was like, you better shove that down, Jen, because you don't need to be runny mascara, red puffy eyes after this, trying to record an episode. The third thing I thought was, how intentional it seemed she was in the way she put her story together. I think oftentimes as storytellers, we seek to make other people comfortable when we're telling a story about something that's hard. I was actually listening to a comedian, Hannah. She was the one that has the special Nanette. When you listen to her in that special, she actually talks about her job as a comedian is to build tension and then relieve the tension. And that's how you create comedy is, with tension relief. And she talked specifically about, but I'm not going to relieve the tension. You need to sit with this tension because things need to change. Not what you typically hear in a comedy special. I think a
Right.
part of what made that so special, and if you haven't watched it, I would highly recommend it. It's called Nanette. I felt like Lynsey was doing the same thing in that she was telling a lot of really impactful stories about the experiences that she had in life. And man, did she have some experiences. She didn't kind of bring those stories to a close in a way that relieved the tension. Because these are problems that still need to be solved.
Right.
I mean, she has been a wartime photographer on the front lines. She has been captured as a prisoner of war, and she talked about that story. And I wanted to know more, and I thought a lot about that. She talked about mortality in giving birth, and that the stories that she was able to see and then tell through photography and the change that she was able to help create. But she didn't put a bookend on that and say, okay, well, it's done, because it's not done. And there's still more that we need to do. And
Right.
so I think for me, it was a reminder that sometimes when we're telling a story, the point is not to just make everyone feel better about it so we can go about our day. It's to really pull the veil back and create awareness about what life is like all around us. And, you and I have been talking about empathy and understanding things from somebody else's point of view. And oftentimes when we think about what something is like in somebody else's life, who doesn't fit the general, what the public culture identifies as normal, you know if they're going through a struggle, it's like we kind of take a look in, a little bit of a window in, and we say, oh, that's too bad, but then we put like an ending on the story, and then we go back
Yeah.
to our daily lives, and people are still living in that.
Well,
A really
that's kind of what
notable thing.
Lynsey was saying, like at the end of her, because I think someone like had asked her a question, and her response to it was something to the effect of, where I go and where I take these pictures, life goes on there. Like it's not like I take this photo and then like there's this immense change, everyone starts pouring resources, but like people want to exist, people want to live, people want to have resources, they want to feel seen and safe and all of those things. And like when you're going out and taking photographs of war happening right in front of you, I think it's easy for people who have not been through that or have not experienced that to be able to be like, oh, well, that's there, that's not here. I feel
Yeah.
bad for them.
And she literally said that. That is one of the things she talked about. She said, people who are in countries who are at war, those people are just real people, just like you and I, and they want to get their kids to in good school, and they want to feed their family, and they just
Right.
want to live their lives. And it's so easy for us to think about, well, what side of the war is their country on? But to be clear, like, these are just people living their lives.
Right.
And while their country may be at war, like, they're still humans just trying to live their lives, take care of their families and their kids. And we distance ourselves from the reality of that by just focusing on the story of, the governments at war, and
Right.
not focusing on the individuals who live in these places that are impacted by all of this. I think that's an especially poignant thing for us to be thinking about right now
Yep.
as tensions amp up, around
Yep.
the globe.
For
But
sure.
but I also am not suggesting that war is something that is just starting to happen. It's been going on, but I think it's just something that for me was incredibly moving to get to hear her story and be reminded that if we're going back to our daily lives and just kind of forgetting about it, then that's not what other people get to do.
Right. Exactly. She did great. Like even her ending, like how she wrapped it all up was perfectly done. I like how you said, about having the bookend and life starting back. But for us as the viewers, I feel like her whole point is there's no bookend. This
There,
isn't
yeah.
over yet.
It was
Like
like an
this,
abrupt ending, and it was just kind of
yes.
like, wait a second.
And it wasn't accidental.
I'm
She
sure
did
she did
she
that
did it on
intentional.
purpose.
Yeah, intentionally. She was a fantastic storyteller in a way that I haven't thought about, and that was incredible. And of course, Cristina too. Very different kind of storyteller. Fantastic storyteller. To your point, we walked away that night. We wanted to know more. We started educating ourselves more, and I think just what an incredible, enlightening experience
Yeah.
to start um, you know, opening our eyes to things that we haven't been thinking about.
Yep. And all through, like, again, I go back to this, like, all through photos.
All
Like,
through
these
photos.
individuals were telling stories and using photos as like the prop, the vehicle, but like it was their experience. It was the words coming out of their mouths that like had you hooked in. So it was all really, really good.
It was incredible.
I
So,
will say
oh,
one thing that I wasn't expecting
yeah.
to find so informative was that Snapchat actually hosted one of the sessions on the content creator section. They talked about Snapchat in a way that I've never heard Snapchat talked about. In fact, I would have thought like Snapchat is one of the um like older
Legacy.
platforms.
Like
Yeah,
it's
legacy
like
platforms.
it
That's
like
a much
it's going
nicer
to
way to
the
say
place
that.
where MySpace went.
Correct. But as they were coming and talking about what the platform can do, how it's used, talking about the users who are on it, like it is an untapped platform, and we certainly are not on it
So
yet.
stay tuned for our Snapchat info, our deets. You can see us there when Chris sets that up for us.
Yes, but I found it fascinating because I was on Snapchat like when it was in its heyday,
I
and
never
then
was.
when other you're not a Snapchatter,
I
never were a
never was.
Snapchatter.
I
All
never
right,
was. I don't know why. There was like some reason that, like some buzz of something about what it was, and then I think I was just like, there's too many things. There was a period of time I went through because before social media became like just a part of our everyday lives, it was something that, my industry that I was in was embracing. And it was like, be on all the things, do all the things. I live with that little red bubble on my phone
with
text
a very large
box
number on it.
of all of those unread messages that didn't start happening until like 2 years ago. The text I would always read now, it's like there's even too many of those. There's just too many places for people to reach out to me, and it's overwhelming to me. I also think I just didn't have the bandwidth for it.
That's an interesting perspective because in all of the sessions that I sat in, it didn't really talk about building the community in person. Like it's all about using the digital platforms like for reach, right? Which of course is what they're all trying to do. But then whenever when we think about like the things that we hear as far as like online bullying, scamming, like these things are done usually through these platforms that we are using. There wasn't really any conversation around how we connect with one another, how it's like used to enhance those relationships, how it is to like memorialize. Because when I think back to Facebook originally, MySpace, like that's what it was. Like I felt like it was more of how to connect and stay in connection with one another. I want to stay connected with people because I want to see what's going on in their lives. And I feel like those things have kind of shifted now. Not saying that that's a bad thing, just I find it interesting from a cultural standpoint. Are wanting to be in each other's lives, but like how much of our lives are we actually showing each other? You know?
Yeah, well, and I mean, not to talk about the pandemic because that's like the very cliche thing to do, but I'm going to talk about the pandemic for a minute because that's the very cliche thing to do. I mean, it's cliche for a reason, right? Like, I think I know personally for us here in the Gear household, um, there was a whole new routine that happened. I mean, we went from, hosting people in our home multiple times a week to like nobody is coming into our home for years. And I think getting back to a place where we start creating community in person, like to go and meet new people in person, what like we just sort of unlearned those habits, and figuring out how to get ourselves back to a place of doing
Yeah.
that, I think takes intention. Maybe not for all people, but certainly for us. And I think a lot of people experience that. I do think, of course, as I said, my favorite thing about my trip was getting to spend time in person with you. I do think that, getting to have that kind of sense of community physically is really important. But I will say I appreciate having the tools available to be able to stay connected as somebody who has moved, multiple times, who has relationships with people, friendships with people across multiple states and countries, like getting to feel that kind of close connection to people that I don't get to spend time with. If I had it my way, I would just like have a private jet and fly all over the world and get to spend time with people in person. But apparently there are better ways to spend money than that. So I'm not doing that. So let's talk about our biggest takeaway. What was your biggest takeaway? We spent these couple of days at this conference. We spent some time with each other. What was your biggest takeaway?
I'm going to give two answers because I feel like there's one for the conference.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the power of storytelling, which is not something that is new to me. It is not something, but like I said, seeing the different ways that people do it and use the tools to tell their story to me was inspiring. And there were people who did it really, really well. And so they have followings. They have, some of them started very organically, like knew no one and just started growing a following. Others were very well known because their work had been published in other places and they had a following. I think it's that ability to tell your story, your ability to show up as who you are. To be very clear, it's very different than who you think your followers want to see or hear. To me, that was a big one from the conference. Be authentic, be yourself. If you are trying to grow a following, it's, posting content. You can share curated content, but also be willing to show a little bit of those behind the scene moments so that people kind of see what all it takes. Like you and I joke all the time about, how long it takes us to warm up, get things set up, get here on time, like all of those things. Like that's real life. That is actually what happens.
I was on time today.
You were. I was the one that was running late. Sorry.
No, you weren't late. You were on time.
I don't think I got in until 1 or 2 minutes after the time we agreed
Okay,
upon.
1 or 2 minutes is on time. I know you don't think that, but I think that.
No.
So, but I was on
know
time.
Your audience. What about you? What was your big takeaway?
I think my biggest takeaway is just that we're doing okay. I think that was my biggest takeaway. We are two people who love to do our absolute best all of the time and to succeed and do the most. And, because we understand the impact that it can have. And we are deeply connected to the mission and the reason why we do things. I think that's where all this pressure comes from that we tend to put on ourselves and all the things that we do.
We put pressure on ourselves? Don't believe it.
I refuse to acknowledge that as a weakness. I think it is a strength. I think it is what makes us, the powerhouse that we each individually are. I'm proud of it. I refuse to apologize for it. I think my biggest takeaway is just, we're ahead of the curve already. We're doing what we need to be doing. We're in that really uncomfortable part of the process where, as our producer says, we just have to be patient and persistent. And, I think, just hearing people talk about things, and these are the things that we're thinking about. And I'm not suggesting, we already know everything, but we're on the right learning curve. We're on the right journey. If you go back and listen to our first episode, or for those of you that did and you're still listening, just thanks for that, because wow, have we, I think, come a long way.
Okay, well, I think our first episode was a pretty good one. The Groundhog Days one kind of went off the rails a little bit.
I mean, just from an audio
chased
quality,
squirrels, literally,
a video quality, our ability to kind of be more comfortable. I'm not, after we record, needing to lay down so I don't throw up anymore.
I'm glad you've gotten to this point.
That was real. That was a real thing. That was a real thing. And so I think for me, just the biggest takeaway is we're on the right path. We're thinking about the right things, and we'll just see where this takes us. But But also to, I guess I'll do a second as well. Like just stay committed to what it is that we have to say, and not try to be somebody that somebody else thinks we should be, because when you do that, you sort of lose the interesting parts about yourself. You lose your message. If you just show up as your real self and you say what you have to say, like all the rest will kind of come in time. I think those were my biggest takeaways.
I think we need to work on getting Ace on the panel for the next Build Expo, because a lot of the things that we heard were things he's told us many of times.
Many of times, yes.
But as we've discussed, sometimes it's hearing it through different lips and experiencing it differently.
Well, I think they weren't like they weren't necessarily new things, but to know that like these are the things that we're struggling with and other creators are struggling with them too, so they are
Yeah.
not it's not like we have to reach this point of we're no longer like grappling with this, but just to enjoy the journey. This is our last episode in the month of June. We've been
Yeah.
celebrating Pride this month together collectively. For me, that's been an amazing experience, and I think we want to just talk a little bit about that, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think first and foremost, a huge thank you to you and to Ace for allowing us to use this platform for such important conversation and allowing me to share my story and hopefully inspiring others and allowing them to hear some different perspectives that maybe they haven't heard before.
Well,
You and I
thank
have
you to you for creating space for us to do that. I think it's been incredible.
Yeah, I do too. And I think something that I really feel connected with over this last month of content is you and I have talked about how we want to build bridges. We don't want to continue living in this world where it's just like people standing on opposite ends of a spectrum just yelling at each other and not hearing and not trying to evolve or change. And part of that is leading with empathy. It's leading with kindness. It's seeking to understand. And I just feel like as we've gone through this last month, it has been great to share, but it's also been great to kind of hear the different perspectives and have you and I go back and forth kind of about what our understandings or thoughts and feelings have been as we've discussed the content. So it's been, I really enjoyed it. It didn't, I mean, not that we had like absolutely carved out what each week was going to be, but we had an idea. But it's been fun to see it evolve and see, I mean, last week we were standing down at Stonewall, able to record and talk about what happened down there. Like I didn't see that coming.
Yeah, that was pretty incredible. Tell me, Chris, like what surprised you?
I'm not sure if it's because of this year that we are going through, or if it is just me coming into more of understanding of what it is to be part of this community and being able to share it with others. But to me, I feel like I have been pulled more emotionally in this last year around these topics and around true advocacy for this group. And I think a lot of it could be because of the vile things that are happening towards it. I feel like I need to be a voice because I do care. Not just because I care because I'm part of the community, but because there are people within this community that I care a lot about. I speak up now. I care. I am passionate and I let it show. I think as we have gone through this last month, it has been surprising to feel a connection with the history, with the community that I'm sure I had before, but it just is landing differently this year, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think what I'm most surprised by is how little I knew. Someone who, you know, has been an ally, somebody who does care. I have many people in my life that are a part of the community. And so, like, just through this experience with you, I am just surprised by how little I knew and how little I knew about how to educate myself. Continue to be very grateful for your willingness to bring me on this journey with you and to share things with me that I didn't understand. I think that is one of my biggest surprises. I've been really surprised by the reaction to the content. You know, I guess I've just been living in this little bubble where it's like, well, it's not that abrasive. Like, I'm surrounded by all of these people that are a part of the community. And then, we go to post something and, our content that's not about pride gets, great response. And our content that is about pride gets a very opposite negative response. And
Yeah.
I was surprised, not that people will feel a certain way, but I was surprised about the magnitude of that. I think there was even a moment where I had shared with you, I just feel like kind of hopeless a little bit for a moment. And I know, then it was like, feel your feelings, go through, give yourself space to have this feeling. And then let's think about this logically and do some research. And is it kind of the part of the internet that we're on? Is it, the people that, that, have been engaging, and like, where does this come from? Or is it really like a cross-section of representative of the entire population? The answer we got to is, probably not.
As we were like posting things and seeing those reactions, I remember like us texting about it and you sharing your thoughts on it. And like, not that I thought that there would be a, fanfare and, oh my
Right.
gosh, thank you for this content. Like, was not expecting that. But I guess like part of my life when it comes to like who I am has always been like creating these buffer zones or this expectation versus reality type thing. So it was just interesting to kind of see you going through these,
what you have to go through all the time. Yeah.
Right. Well, and not that it's all the time that I go through it, but I just think it's like this expectation of like, oh, I'm sharing this stuff and I'm not doing it to like put it in your face. I'm not doing it to offend anyone. Like, if anything, I want people to hear the stories. I want them to understand. I'm not saying I need you to agree with me. And so I think it's been interesting to get to see someone who is an ally of the community kind of go through it and see the reaction. It's informed me. Like, it has helped me understand like our differences in a good way. Like,
what? And it was not lost on me that here I am telling you, oh my gosh, I'm in despair about this negative reaction. And you're probably sitting over there like, welcome, Jen. Welcome to the table. Take a seat. Have a chair. Like, I'm so glad you've decided to show up finally.
Yeah. It wasn't.
Not that you would ever say that to me, but like that
Right.
was what I envisioned, right? You saying is like, okay, all right. Now I see you've joined the dinner party.
But I do think that there is beauty in this, in the fact that like this is a journey we have gone on together, and we have taken purposeful steps and we have navigated it with one another. And I think that we both kind of had that same apprehension as we were starting, like, oh, what if we make stuff and people don't like it, or the comments are mean to us, or, what are we going to do? And I just think I think we have navigated it in a much better way than I was expecting us to. Like, not sure, like, I had the highest expectations of myself, but I want to say, like, I told you this back whenever we posted something. I'm not posting this for the masses. If this is a lifeline to one or two
person.
people,
Yeah,
I'm totally fine with that, because I was that person who was looking for that lifeline, looking for that connection. And if it only resonates with one person, great. It was it was meaningful enough. And I am happy that we put it out there.
And just to clarify, like, my despair was not about the reaction to our content. It was like, is this really what's out there in the world?
Yeah.
Like, is this really how the majority of people feel? Because I thought indifference is where the majority of people lived, or like ignorance, indifference, and like the fact that it was just such an overwhelming negative response. Um, I'm grateful for the experience because it gives me a little picture into what it must feel like for people who are afraid to like be their authentic self, because they don't know, you know, how that will be accepted and how other people will respond. And, it's just a tiny little picture into that window, but it is one of the things that surprised me the most. I
Yeah.
was not prepared for that. And I think it also encouraged me to just keep on going, because if that's the reaction, then like we need to do more to educate about, what's really going on.
Yeah.
Um, because we're all just people trying to make it in this world, and we've got to start talking about the things we have in common, because there's so much more that we have in common than we have not in common.
Yeah. I do think I don't remember which episode it was that after we had posted or what we had posted, but you and I were actually having like an on the phone conversation. And I said something around, well, this is a big difference between like people being tolerant of it and people being accepting of it. And I remember you were saying like, oh, I've never really thought of it in that context. And so like us having that conversation around like, people were willing to be nice and like cordial and engage in conversation. They're not going to be like, oh, I'm not talking to you because you identify as gay. I'm out. Like majority of people are not that way. However, whenever it comes to like me choosing the content that I want to engage with and what the information I am seeking out, like, why are you serving me this? I don't like it. Dislike. And like, look, we went into this knowing that, not everything was going to be for everyone. To be very clear, we are not complaining about that. It's just more of that eye-opening experience of there is a very big difference between people tolerating something and people accepting it. Like
Yeah,
two very different things.
absolutely. So 11 years of you actively participating in Pride. What stands out to you this year?
I think I'm more proud than ever. But I will say, whenever we were walking around Stonewall last week and like seeing all the people and like there was just an energy that I really enjoyed while we were down there. And as we were walking around, like it's a long, thin triangle. And it's you, me, and Ace walking around this space. And of course, it's public street, so people are walking around us. But as we're walking around, like we're seeing people engaging with the photos and things that are actually on the fences. And when we came around to the pictures of Marsha P. Johnson, Sylvia, and Zazu, there was extra stuff on them. I just thought that that was because they were like known people within the community. It wasn't until like we got home and Ace started like piecing everything together and we started doing more research that we found that the executive order that defined the removal of transgender, that there's only male or female, that because this is a national monument, it's all of that stuff has been edited, deleted, changed, whatever. And then I go back and I look at that and I see all the flags that were around that park. They were the rainbow flag. They were not the inclusion flag, which has the transgender monikers on it, which I did not think about in that moment, but it's in the reflection of it. That's because it's a national monument. They were told that they're not allowed to do that. And so that's why when we go back and we look at that video and there were people who were putting those flags there, that's that's a protest. That is a small protest that people are going in and putting those things to identify those individuals, to identify that community. So I think for me, it was just, it's been an enlightening experience with this current administration, and then how this community that we are so much further than where we were back in the 1960s, but like, geez Louise, we still have a long ways to go and a lot still on the line. And so to me, that was kind of my, as I look back over the last 11 years, it's been great. It's been fun. Like, I've always enjoyed Pride, but this year it just seems to hit differently. And you see it in people doing the reminders that Pride started as a protest.
Yeah.
Pride started as a march. And so I feel like a lot more people are leaning into that this year as a reminder. We're not going to be erased. You're not changing our history. You are not going to exit us from the current existence. And that's why we have to continue fighting. That's why we have to continue raising our voices. That's why we need to educate and inform our allies so that they feel empowered and informed. So when they hear someone speak, maybe not out of a place of like putting someone down or trying to be malicious, but maybe speaking out of ignorance. Well, how do you correct that? How can you engage in that conversation with them? So I feel like you and I have had many of those conversations over the last few weeks. And hopefully, allowing people to see a little bit into our lives and into our journeys encourages that for people. Because when you feel like you have people that you identify with and that you are part of that community, you then care because you have skin in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I agree. I think we started the month by saying Pride is not just a celebration. It's a protest. It's advocacy. It's support. It's community. It's all of these things. And I think through this month, I have really understood that better. To understand what Pride really can mean. And that we have to work to make it mean that for ourselves and the community. So I think, I love that you end that question on, the story about the three women whose names were erased from the signs and people putting their names back up. Just such a powerful move to say, this is a protest. We will not be erased. So what are we doing now? What are we doing right now? We're in Pride Month. We are advocating. Currently, we have just kicked off today. Today, the day that we're recording this, not today, the day that you are hearing this. We've just kicked off our Strides for Pride in the campaign that Covenant House is putting on. And Chris, do you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is an organization that brings support for unhoused youth, specifically within the LGBTQ plus community. It is a larger group that experiences homelessness and all of the things that come with homelessness: food insecurity, lack of health care, lack of just the
legal
everyday
aid.
Living. Right.
Yeah.
All of the things. And so this organization has come to help fill that void and fill that need. Strides for Pride is a fundraising event that they're doing to get people up and moving. 40 minutes a day is what they're asking us to do. And heck, we got 40 minutes a day we can spare.
We absolutely do. We can make 40 minutes a day for this. I think for me, understanding that 40% of all unhoused youth are part of the LGBTQIA plus community is mind-blowing, because when you think about proportionately, like, that is not 40% of all youth. So 40% of those who are homeless youth are a part of this community. They are disproportionately impacted. And to be in a place where you already have a smaller community that you can be safe around. Like it's not okay. So we are walking, moving, doing the things to be able to create awareness and to raise support for Strides for Pride. If you haven't yet donated, we hope that you will donate and share your support. The money doesn't go to us; it goes to Covenant House, and that
Not a
money is
dime.
used to support youth across North America who are homeless. I strongly believe that everybody deserves to be loved and to know that they are loved and to hear that they are loved in a safe place, and to be able to have a place where they are, seen as a valid human. They have so much life ahead of them, and this is just such a good cause, and such a great way to spread kindness. We do ask that you consider sharing and supporting the cause, because it is something that is really important to us. I'm excited that we are doing that. That will go on for this week. What are we going to carry forward? We know Pride lives all year round. It's not just a month, and I am incredibly grateful that we have Pride Month so that we can take time to specifically focus in on and remember the history, think about what's going on now, show our support, and we will continue to do that. I know for me, Chris, one of the things that I am taking away that I will continue to do more is speak up. One of the things that I realized is there are some retailers that I have been an incredibly loyal customer to. And this year, unlike years past, they didn't put out a Pride collection. And for me, that wasn't the statement that I was hearing was, we're not going to be here to stand here and say that you're valid and you belong, and that was not okay. And so I took the time to reach out, not because I think one loyal customer is going to change their opinion, but because what else can I do? Like they need to know. I think I'm going to continue to do that. I'm going to continue to, instead of avoiding topics that I think are just going to incite more yelling across the chasm, which is not what I'm interested in doing, I'm going to show up and support in the comments those companies that are posting in advocacy, because if just one person that needed to see and be reassured that there are people out there that see them for who they are, that support them, if just one person sees that, then it's worth it.
Yep.
And so, my intention is throughout the remainder of this year, for the next, 365 days, I'm going to continue to speak up instead of trying to shy away from the topics that may be polarizing. Not speak up in a way that, is intended to be polarizing, but from a place of support.
I recently had an experience of a conversation with someone, and they said something to the effect of, we were talking about LGBTQ plus rights, and someone said, "Oh, well, let's not get political." And I am sorry, the LGBTQIA plus community doesn't want to be a politicized community. I mean, at least I don't think they want to be. I know I don't want to be. So whenever people make flippant comments like that, and whether or not that was the intent that the person meant to say that with, it landed that way. And it's like, let's be clear. I am not a politicized individual. The person that I love, the love that I have, the life which I lead, not by choice, but because it is who I am, has been politicized.
Yeah.
And so I just even think, like, when you hear things and being able to engage in those conversations and being able to just help people see things from a different perspective, again, not in such a way that it's like attacking or it's making people feel a certain way, but it's that acknowledgement that this is real life for many people. And so, be aware. And I think as allies, like, that's what you can do when you hear things, people say things, like, it's not even that, find a way to make it authentic to yourself and that you feel comfortable with, but being able to say something to the effect of, "Oh, well, actually, I have a couple of really close gay friends or lesbian friends or transgender friends. And, that's not how I see them. That's not how I experience them. And see where the conversation goes. Because a lot of times those people then back off because all of a sudden, ooh, like, may put my foot in my mouth, which again,
and I think
they
that's
may
just
not
it.
have.
It's like not wanting to ruffle feathers or make people feel uncomfortable, but that means that then it's okay for others to be uncomfortable. Like, why does the
Right.
LGBTQIA plus community have to sit with the discomfort? And I'm not talking about, you know, the extremes here. I'm not talking about throwing things in people's face. I'm not talking about, I mean, when we talk about this in schools, we're not talking about educating people on how to have, you know, physical relations or anything like that. Like they're just, they're people. It's your people. We're all humans and we all deserve to be seen and valued and respected, whether we agree or disagree. And it's not about personal beliefs, it's about advocating for humanity. And I think
Yeah.
that just threads back to the theme that we talked about through the Build conference. And, my takeaway from Lynsey Addario talking about we are all humans. We're all people just trying to live our lives, and we want the same things for our kids and our families and ourselves. And I think for me, that's the grounding principle that I try and carry forward in the way that I live my life. Is I'm continuously evaluating, am I living my life in a way that helps other people feel seen and heard and valued, even if we don't agree on things. And there is space for alternate opinions and alternate beliefs, but those the thing that they can't violate is all people are human and deserve the same right
Yeah.
to be valued, seen, respected, exist in the world.
I think it's what's important, and that people, I think that's what needs to be discussed, really, because if we all start at a place of humanity, then the world becomes a much different place.
It
Becomes a
does.
much different way that we relate to one another and we connect with one another.
It's so easy for us to get divided, and once we're divided, we can be conquered. And the way that people are divided and conquered and controlled by a select few is by allowing themselves to be pitted against each other, and to focus on that percentage of things with which we don't agree about. But the reality is that we do actually agree on the vast majority of things.
Yeah.
And if we could just spend a little more time talking about those things, connecting on those things. I shared at the beginning of our conversation, one of the things I was so grateful for is getting to spend time and space with somebody who it's safe to disagree with about things that are important, and push each other to think differently, um, without judgment. And I think the more space we can create for that with each other, the more that we will grow and evolve as humans. We didn't walk away from conversations, at least I don't know, maybe you did, but I didn't walk away from conversations where we disagreed and thought, oh, I don't know about that one. And I think,
Absolutely did. I was like, I'm never talking to her again. This is it. We're
and then the
leaving.
next day, here we are again.
No, but I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, to be curious. Like,
Yeah.
to be curious and want to seek to understand, like, what are your motives? Why do you think that way? What has brought you to this place where you are in your life? Like, I want to know. Not so that I can judge you or that I can decide whether, you go in the friend or foe column, but because I want to know.
Yeah.
Because I know my journey wasn't a linear journey, you know, and so I don't assume anyone else's was. So it's through those experiences that we get to learn about, like, what's shaped a person, what makes them tick, and, like, to me, that's what's interesting. Like, that to me is how we connect with one another, and I think that's why, like, kind of going back to this theme of storytelling, like, that's what I love. I love to hear how our emotions move us, how we connect with people or things, because ultimately that's what moves us. And that's what creates change.
Yeah,
And
it does.
we can choose whether it's good change or bad change.
Reminds us that we're all humans. We're a part of the same species, and we want many similar things. So thank you, Chris, for sharing this Pride Month with me in such a special way. I think, I don't think I know I will forever be changed by this experience, and I'm incredibly grateful for it. And I was not expecting that that's what this month would become for me. I truly appreciate it, and I'm very grateful that I've had the space to really dive in to this with you. So we will continue to carry our torch and
That's right.
to advocate for the LGBTQIA plus community. We appreciate you hanging out with us to talk about Pride and all of the things that are a part of Pride Month for us this month.
Right.
Thank you.
We would love to hear from all of you. What are you doing to pull Pride through the rest of the year? How are you going to show up differently? How are you going to go educate yourself? Whatever it may be, please feel free to share that with us. We'd love to hear from you. Depending on what platform you're listening to us on, you can drop comments. You can reach out to us via email at chrisjeninthemorning@gmail.com, or you can send us a voicemail text message at 940-278-8129.
No one has texted that number yet. I know it works. We tested it. We really want to hear from you. Be our first.
Who's going to be the first? Time will tell.
Don't forget also to follow us on social media platforms. We are anywhere that you can find a podcast, but we are so YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music, all the places wherever you're listening to us. We also are on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We are on TikTok. We are. Where else are we, Chris? We're going to be on Snapchat, apparently. we are in all the places. Definitely, whatever social platform you're using, wherever you're at, feel free to drop a comment. One of our favorite things to do is to read the comments and respond to them. Definitely engage with us. And if you have not already subscribed to our channel, please do. It really helps us. It helps the algorithms find the right people that want to hear what we have to say. Please follow, subscribe, drop a comment. And until next time, just be kind to one another and have a fantastic week.